Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Way T Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today I am super pumped because we've got biohacking for women, how we can combine free biohacks from nature with the latest gadgets and technology to optimize women's health. Also, why it's helpful to take advantage of data when putting together a personalized health optimization plan. And our guests today are known as the Biohacker Babes. Now, I don't know if that's going to give me in some kind of Me Too movement trouble, but that's what they call themselves, and I'm just reading from the script. So shoot me now, folks. That's the way it goes. Let's talk about Lauren and Renee, who are sisters. They grew up in a health-driven family that prioritized the fundamentals of wellness and self-care. Their father, Gene Sambataro, the original biohacker and pioneer of holistic dentistry, taught them the importance of individualization and experimentation from a very young age. Coming together as health entrepreneurs, Renee, a certified nutritional consultant and holistic lifestyle coach with a master's degree in nutrition, and Lauren, a Broadway performer, corrective exercise specialist, and functional health coach, feel a strong passion and drive to not only share each other's journeys towards wellness, but their strategy and motivation to discover our unique bodies through the world of biohacking. Their podcast, The Biohacker Babes, aims to create insight into the body's natural healing abilities, how to strengthen your intuition, and empower you with techniques and modalities to optimize your health and wellness. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you. What an introduction. Your energy is just like flying through the screen. It's almost 5 o'clock here. I'm on the East Coast, and you just energized me times 1,000. So thank you so much.
Sweet.
Yes, thank you for having us.
It's the 20 years of enzymes I've been pumping into my system that increases my electrical energy.
That is a testament. I love it.
I love my enzymes. I got them flowing today.
Yeah, maybe I was just growing up in the wrong place and it just was loud and just got myself into all sorts of trouble and found myself in this. But hey, guess what? Great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
I've been waiting for this for a while. I'm really excited. Anytime that a guy like me can interview a couple of babes, biohacking babes especially, it's always a great thing. Maybe you ladies would be willing to share a little bit, like, what was it like growing up, kind of under the shadow of somebody in the holistic dentistry? So there's a couple things. One, you're getting integrated with a bunch of things that everybody thinks you're crazy. Number two, you got to develop and kind of move into the world. And then three, you got to kind of carve out your own path, both as, individuals, but also that, getting out from under the parent shadow. What was that like?
Well, it's so interesting always listening to the bio being read in front of us, because I don't want anyone to think that we were privileged in a way, that we kind of had all the answers. The idea behind following our dad and learning from him was that we learned from a very young age to not take no for an answer, and to always question, to continually question, and to expand your health journey, and maybe take like a wider perspective. And I think that's so present in this day and age when we're just like inundated with so much information, data, opinions. And it's really hard to know which direction to turn and how to find your own, puzzle, put together your own puzzle pieces. So we learned very early on that questioning and using discernment is just such a powerful tool to get there. And that helped us. I think it sort of set us on our own paths of discovery. And it's, the path is still moving. I don't think it will ever come to an end, but that has just always stuck with us. And, our dad was doing weird things in our living room when we were kids. Like he had a PEMF machine before anybody else knew about it. He had a low-level laser, and it was like the weird family, but it was a perspective. It's like, okay, there's more than, there wasn't Google then, but more than what we were seeing on in magazines at Barnes and Noble.
That's Lauren's perspective. Renee, what was it like for you?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all the same thing. I think to take a step back, I would love to share our dad's story of how he even got into this, because I think this is such a powerful story of how we even got where we are today. So in 1985, our dad was still practicing traditional dentistry. He was placing mercury fillings. He was doing root canals, fluoride treatments, all the normal things. And his best friend of like 40 years was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. And he was given 3 to 6 months to live. They said, go home, get everything in order. We're sorry, we can't even treat your cancer. And this like tough Italian guy said, screw you, went to California. This is from Maryland at the time, flew out to California, found this alternative holistic clinic. And the first thing they did when he walked in, they said, open your mouth. All the metal in your mouth has to come out before we can treat your cancer. And he's like, what does that have to do with my cancer? Right. So he flies home, he tells my dad, a dentist, and my dad says, yeah, what does that have to do with anything? What's wrong with those silver fillings? But our dad, being so open-minded, started searching. And like Lauren said, there was no Google, there wasn't internet. He started asking around, finding books, like found Weston A. Price's research on root canals and Dr. Hal Huggins in Colorado, and just didn't stop searching for answers. And he finally learned the toxicity of mercury, and it changed his whole practice. In 1986, he became what we now call biological dentistry and never looked back. But I think so we learned at a young age to never stop questioning things. And I think especially in 2021, that's really important. I think people aren't questioning things enough. Like, you need to know the facts. You need to know both sides. You need to keep asking the questions. Anyway, so that's the story of our dad. So we kind of grew up with that. And we always joke, you know, we had plenty of Pizza Hut nights and whatever as kids. Like we weren't always just eating whatever. But and then we both
fermented tofu and
there was a little bit of a tofu craze, I think, at one point.
And sprouts and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he was a great influence. Our mom as well, just being more holistic minded and having access to like an infrared sauna in high school was pretty amazing. And then we both went off to college and kind of forgot a lot of what we learned, I think. And I know I personally trashed my body a little bit and ended up having a complete burnout period in my early 20s. And of course, I'm going back to mom and dad. I'm like, what do I do? Right. And they were great resources to kind of kick off my journey back to health.
It's amazing how many people in the holistic health industry had a influence at some point in their life early on, or usually around a crisis within their health, from someone who had gone outside the normal channels for answers and to really good questions. But I think you have to be willing to accept that just because someone has a bunch of credentials next to them doesn't mean that they know everything, or just because someone's really smart, they can only know what they've studied, and what they don't know is what they don't know. We have a culture that I think is becoming more and more dependent on specialized authority who are so nicheified, they're not generalists. And biohacking to me is a more generalist approach, which was similar to our earlier ancestors, the founders of this country, who were essentially, they were polymaths. I mean, you look at these folks, they were farmers, they were astrologers, and they were writers, and they were engineers, essentially, you know, like every person, men, women, are like, you had to be extremely creative. You had to learn a lot of different fields. There wasn't a whole bunch of information available to you like they have today. And today we have this wealth of information, but I've said, I've never seen so many people who know so little about so much.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Was this questioning mindset that led you on this path, was that something that you had, it was just in you? Was it learned, or did you kind of, you know, question maybe your parents, go off on your own and kind of crash and burn and like, well, maybe they knew something? Like, what was that like?
I don't know. I think it probably leaked into the subconscious a little bit. And when, you know, Renee had her burnout, I had my version of burnout. And
what were those like? What were burnouts like?
So I had what they used to call adrenal fatigue. My cortisol was super low. Renee had mono, which turned into Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue. And, you know, when you get answers from doctors that you're fine, you're normal, I think when you check back in with your symptoms, from our background, it was like, that's not okay. And so it's like, you're not going to just accept that. There's no acceptance. you want more. You want to find out more. And it is amazing the resources that are available to us now. And yes, we're inundated with way too much, but I think that's why it's part of our practice and what we do with our health coaching is trying to develop a practice intuition, because you have to have a grounding piece that pulls you back to your own inner knowing and be able to sort through the information and trust yourself more than you can trust anyone else out there. Because you never know, an expert could be called an expert, but how do you know that they're really going to take this holistic view and see the 30,000 foot view? And there's just so many pieces you can miss. So it's just constantly zooming out, I think.
So when did this become, your own journey, kind of moving through your own health challenges? When did this become a career for you guys? When did you say, hey, you know what? Let's become the biohacking babes. What, how did you jump from, hey, I'm suffering from this condition and I'm not accepting what this so-called expert is telling me, I'm going to go off and do my own research or find the appropriate people who can tell me something and get me into a place of awesomeness. What was that journey like?
Renee has a good answer.
I mean, my journey, with the burnout, I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome in my early 20s. And the doctors that I went to said, your labs are normal, just keep sleeping. You just need more sleep. I was sleeping 13, 14 hours a night.
Oh my God.
Using my intuition, I'm going to say that's probably not the answer. So, I kept searching. It ended up being, like Lauren said, Epstein-Barr virus, mercury toxicity, HPA axis dysfunction. It ended up being so many things. And I just had to keep searching and putting my puzzle pieces together to figure out what I needed to do. And in the meantime, I started studying nutrition to help myself. And it was just interesting to me. My undergrad was international business. I graduated, got my dream job. I hated it. My dream job in quotes. I hated it. And so my dad said, well, what is your Friday night essence?
Yeah,
I love this.
A great question.
And I'm like, well, I read nutrition books. That's what I do for fun. Like in my spare time, I read nutrition books. He says, that's what you need to do. So I went back, I got my master's in nutrition, but we know nutrition is just the beginning, right? Then I started learning about all the other things, sleep and exercise, stress management, all the fun biohacks. There's just so much more. And so once I graduated, I started working with clients one-on-one, similar to Lauren. We both were just working, doing our own thing, working for doctors, running our own businesses. And then 3 years ago, we said, we are so lucky that we're sisters and we come from a family that loves optimal health and wellness. Why aren't we doing something together? She's in New York, I'm in Vegas. There's, everything's virtual. So why not? And we said, let's do a podcast. That was the original idea. Let's do a podcast to help people because, when you're working with clients one-on-one, there's only so many hours in the day and it's exhausting. And we said a podcast, we can reach people all around the world and help educate people for free. And so we teamed up 3 years ago and never really looked back. It's been a great adventure so far.
That's really cool. What would you say are some of the common issues that your clients are coming to you with, and who would you say are your clients, and what's that conversation like?
I love that question. I seem to attract clients that are looking for whatever I am also looking for. And so that has kind of changed and evolved through the years. And recently I've been attracting women that are approaching menopause that have weight loss resistance. And I do a lot of functional diagnostic labs. And so work with a lot of numbers, trying to correlate symptoms with data. But I'm finding that the missing piece is the mindset. All of these women tend to be mothers, they're trying to do everything in our patriarchal society. They feel a responsibility, and there's not a lot of stillness. So I find there's distractions everywhere. And this is really on my mind today because I'm doing a microdosing coaching course right now to learn how to bring that into my practice. And I also had some clients this morning and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is distracted, constantly distracted. I'm like, how are you doing? And the answer is, oh, well, my daughter this, my friend this. I'm like, no, you. And it's almost this like default mode network choice to focus on everything outside of themselves. And we know you have to bring it internal. That's the holistic approach. I mean, you have to look at your energetic body, your spiritual body, and you can't fix that with labs and supplements. So there's this whole mindset piece that I think we're starting to get more awareness around it. It's just such a huge testament to like, we have to take that larger approach.
Yeah. It's, M, the awesome is an acronym, and M stands for mental beliefs and attitudes.
I love it.
Which could be at the first of the awesome acronym, but then it would be Mosso and would be all messed up.
Yeah, it doesn't ring as much.
Yeah, it doesn't. So it's interesting because I think you agree. I would agree that when I see a lot of people, and the good news is when they come to you, they've usually got to the position that they need help, right? Something's not working. But you brought up something that I think is not spoken about a lot when it comes to biohacking. Now, there's one group of people that just want to buy their way out of the situation. What do I need to buy? What do I need to get? What device, what machine, what pills, give it to me now, send it to me, have my assistants ship that over. And I should be better by next week because I need to go to Europe.
Right? Yep. Easy. I got to go on vacation. Got to drop 10 pounds tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to buy their way out of a lifestyle that's got them into trouble. Then there's another group that are trying to deny themselves out of the lifestyle that got them out of trouble. And ideally, those are kind of opposing aspects of a dysfunctional mindset in their approach to life. How do you guys address the mindset of health transformation or health optimization or steering the ship out of that? And do you have that conversation early on? Is it something that comes up, or does it vary from person to person? I'd like to hear both of you on this one.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that over the years, the type of client I've worked with, it's changed, it's evolved. I used to work with a lot of very, very sick patients, a lot of Lyme disease, cancer, dementia. And with those people, the mindset, something that's always stuck with me, I heard from Dr. Bob Marshall. He was one of my first teachers. And he said, you always want to start a consult with, when did you decide to get sick?
Ooh, that's a great question.
It's a tough one to ask, but with a lot of those patients that had those debilitating illnesses, that was an important piece because there was usually something that triggered that final thing. Like you don't just get cancer overnight, right? It's a lot of things building up and then something maybe flips the switch. So I think with those people, it was that idea, when did you decide to get sick? And kind of approaching it that way. But now I actually work a lot more with, on the other side of the spectrum, almost like biohackers looking to optimize. So they're pretty healthy overall, but they're looking for that next level. And to be honest, I don't really have that mindset conversation with them a lot.
Right.
I don't know if that's a missing piece or not, but they seem mentally like ready. Like any recommendation I make, they're on it. And they're a little bit more open-minded. But I think
there's a little more urgency there.
Yeah.
How about you, Lauren? What do you find?
It really does vary from person to person. Usually, the first consult is just, let's see what kind of settles to the bottom. Right. If I see that they're presenting with all of these distractions, then I will come right back and kind of question that. Something I learned from Paul Chek, I'm a Chek practitioner, is you have to find out what their dream is. And so that's usually a big question in our first chat. What is your dream? What are you trying to move towards? What is your purpose? And a lot of people cannot answer that question because they're just so stuck in the day-to-day, the responsibilities, the to-dos, like checking off all the things on the calendar. And that dream always pulls you back. It's like it's a check. You're like, oh, I have to pause. And it stumps a lot of people, but I think it just gets you in that mindset where you do start questioning. You are just a little bit more aware of how your choices, your inputs are settling in your body, because we know the body keeps score. Your cells are listening. Your thoughts are informing everything that the body does. And I think it always shows up in different ways with people, but the conversation has to happen in some way.
Yeah, it's Paul's a good friend of mine, and we get to spend a little time with him down in his new place. Have you been down to his new facility? It's not.
I haven't.
Oh,
I need to.
Is it nice?
it's really good. It's really good. He's working on a new book right now. So as soon as he's complete that, I'm going to go down for a little visit, but he's certainly
Nice.
one of the great masters in this field in a variety. He's a real polymath as well. He's super gifted in a lot of different areas, quite phenomenal in an influence. What influences have, and I would say Paul's probably one of the big ones for dialing in with your intuition over just tech only, because tech is obviously a big driving force in the biohacking movement. But how do you guys use technology in combination with intuition? I have my own method, but I'm interested in how you guys do it, because I'm curious, because I think this is where the magic happens.
Yeah, we both love numbers. We have a family group thread because we all have Aura rings, and so almost every day we're posting our recovery scores, we're discussing it. And we all go through periods where those numbers can be stressful and they can sort of like dampen your spirit and your energy. So I think for Renee and I, it's building a practice where before you check your data, you're checking in with your own body. And there's some days if I'm on vacation, I'm like, I'm not going to check it because that's not going to serve me. And we know these things are new on the market. They're not accurate. They really are just serving as a guide. So I think it's really important to just ask, is it serving you? Are those numbers actually informing your day to move you towards more positive choices? And if not, then like scrap them. I also think they should be short term. Like we should not be beholden to technology forever. It's a learning tool. And then we have to match it with our sense of inner knowing. And we were talking about this earlier. It's like once you build that intuition, then you don't need it. It's like your body just tells you. It's like it's a yes or a no. This much, not so much over here. So it's a process.
Is that the same for you, Renee? As you have
I think using the devices to learn as much as you can to then not need them later on. I can't say I'm ever going to take my Aura ring off. I do love it. The data
I love mine too.
Yeah. It's just, it's easy. It's easy, but I can wake up and guess what my readiness and sleep score are probably going to be before I even plug it in, because I've been wearing it for 3 years now. I almost wish that some of the devices on the market, you could just rent them for a couple months. I think that's one reason why I really like the Leaf device, because you can rent it every 4 weeks. You can decide, do you want to keep it? Do you want to send it back? Like I used it for 8 weeks. I learned everything I could about controlling my heart rate variability through breath work. And then I sent it back. Like, I think that'd be great if we could do that for every biohacking device. You decide, do I want to keep it? Because now I have a drawer full of things that I've tried and I don't really feel the need to use anymore. Because you do get
a business. There's a business idea out there, entrepreneurial, where people get a biohacking leasing company for short-term rentals of biohacking devices. It's a good.
Yeah.
That is a great idea.
Uh-oh, hurry. We got to do it now.
Yes. When is this episode coming out? Hurry up.
We'll delay it a few days. No.
Wait, I'm curious to hear your answer.
Well, I'm both blessed and cursed in the same way. It depends how you look at it. So when I was 15, I was removed from normal life and living almost an ashram existence, 5 miles to my nearest neighbor up a dirt road, telephone poles under my door, literally had to drive a snowmobile out to the road, take an hour bus ride to school, it was basically, it was living on the frontier kind of thing. And I wasn't happy about that. However, with the lack of stimulation, it forced me to become highly observational. And I started working out literally in my barn, and I would train. It'd be 40 below. I'd be training in a snowmobile stove. It would freeze my hands to the bar. I built my own equipment. And inside of that, I began to learn what Bill Pearl, the famous Mr. Universe competitor, said, or champion said, keys to the inner universe. There was a process. And what's interesting is years later, when I got into Eastern philosophy, I started studying Yogananda's work and getting into meditation and all of that. The Patanjali's Eightfold Path is you know, most people think of yoga as hatha, the breath work, but there's yama, niyama, the moral and ethical codes of living. Otherwise you don't get it. Then there's, asana and, pratahara, dharana, dhyana, all these kind of things, and which is the process of interiorization and then concentration, observation, and then eventually samadhi. You kind of, you get, that's the shortened westernized version of that process. And bodybuilding became my yoga, and it had been practiced in India for many, many centuries. It was one of the pathways of yoga that most people aren't aware of. And what's fascinating about that is I ended up competing at the Mr. Universe years later in India, which was ironic in itself, and spent some time living in some ashrams. And I started to realize the rigidity of bodybuilding life kind of monitored or mirrored the rigidity of ascetic life in an ashram type environment. They were very concordant to each other. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And as I was able to strip down my life through the restrictive practices that are required for success as a competitor, you become hyper aware and hyper tuned to what's going on in your body. And what I realized, it wasn't about the externalization expression of physical perfection. That's what bodybuilding essentially is. You're trying to sculpt out like an artist and chisel out, proportions. And I studied Greek architecture and looked at the golden ratio and would put the muscles so they would each go, which is on the Fibonacci sequence. And that's what we determine as aesthetic ideals. And I studied the national champions for years and started working out the measure. That's how I went about it.
Wow.
And that was an introduction by Vince Gironda, a former Hollywood trainer. And so what is often seen as kind of a narcissistic pursuit, and it certainly is for a lot of people, never was for me. It was this inner journey and this inner artistic endeavor, which came together in its completion when I found Eastern philosophy. So these are things that made sense within it, but there was no Western kind of idealized until I discovered that, the works of Yogananda, the father of yoga in the West, and et cetera, et cetera. So from that point, what was interesting is my career in the fitness industry kind of expanded because my business partner, who was an internet guy, and this, I'm going to come full circle here, 5 years younger than me, integrated into digital technology since a kid, very tech oriented, loves data, loves information, loves systems, love expansion and these concepts. And when I came back from India, he's like, dude, we were both personal trainers, completely different philosophies of how we approach fitness. He's tech data driven. I'm intuitive, mystic, yogi guy. I come back, I'd given up all my possessions. And came back, live in this little apartment, and we met, and he's like, hey, dude, we need to sell, you need to write a course. You're a vegetarian bodybuilding champion. We went to the Mr. Universe. We could make money online. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Make money? Nobody's
online?
making money online. This is in late 2003, early 2004. He's like, no, I'm making money online. We can sell courses online and educate people. When I was really into educating people, that was one of my big passions as a coach. So I said, well, I can write the book and the course if you can sell it online. We started the company for $200, and now it's 18 years later, and we're one of the premier biohacking companies in the world. So it's, and there's a lot there's a lot of stuff in there. But what's interesting is he loves data. He loves devices, and he has a philosophy where he goes, data shapes destiny. And my philosophy is, where the mind goes, the body will follow. So
I love it.
So we go back and forth. And what's interesting is I believe in exactly what you suggest, is that if you're not so intuitively driven, then data becomes a great association to recognize what you're feeling intuitively. Mm-hmm. If you're intuitively driven, you're going to need the data to support your kind of mystical self, where people are going, you're just a wackadoodle, right? What do you mean you can feel that mineral when it goes in your body. Well, I can.
I think that's the highest power. That's
right.
incredible.
Like, it's great. We all have capabilities of it, but if you go out there and say, no, you know what? I don't, I just wake up and sense what's going on. I do my energization. I got a little blockage there. Oh, I got to work that out. And like, feel this thing that's going on. Like, what I mean? Like, that's my world. And he's like,
yeah,
hey, look, we're looking at your sleep score, your HRV's off, blah, 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 so it was really fun. It's really fun to go back and forth and ping pong.
Yeah. The combination is so helpful.
It is. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why we've been successful is we don't see each other as competitors or as, even though we have, like, he's a ketogenic guy, I'm a plant-based guy, and we run a company together. Like, we're agnostic about all these things. It's about how do you come to what's right for you. And that there's a lot of components to that, which change over time as we go. And we'd like to be flexible. We've had our debates for certain, and some of them still open-ended after 20 plus years. But I'm curious for you guys, do you see a variance in the age groups that you're dealing with, what they're more comfortable with, data or intuition? And do you see a variance between women versus men? That's what I'm curious about.
I see that the longer that you go in your life without tapping into the intuition, the harder that it is. People get more and more distractions, more outside of their body. So it is kind of hard to bring people back. And I think it's so incredible that you have that intuition, but it's not something that you can just hand someone. It's like the longer you've been stuck in that state, the longer it's going to take to unwind it. The longer you've been doing unhealthy practices, the longer it's going to be to unwind that. So a huge amount of patience, but men versus women. I'm not sure I have an answer for that. Do you, Renee?
I can't say I see a difference. It's really, really, really different.
I find that women are a little bit more in their heads trying to do the correct thing. And I think whenever we're trying to do the quote unquote correct thing, that just takes us outside of ourselves. There is no right or wrong. It's like you said, it's what's right for you. And no one can tell you that. When I work with clients, they're like waiting for me to tell them. I'm like, that's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. We're going to have to play. We're going to have to experiment. We're going to have to reassess. This could be a 6-month process before I really know what's going to work for you. And you have to be there with me. It's got to be 50-50. We have to have feedback, just like you have with your partner. We have to have that balance to really put this together, because I just find so many people are out of their bodies in that way.
Yeah. But I think that's where the data is really helpful too, as a practitioner, because years ago, we were just going based off of how a client felt and their food journal. But now I can log into, like Heads Up Health, and I can see their aura data, their sleep data, their HRV, their macros. I can see everything without even picking up the phone. And so it's easy because then I can be like, okay, their sleep score was this last night. And then I message them, what did you do yesterday? And so like having that
Watching
extra, yes. What did you drink last night? So just being able to like jump on it a little bit earlier as a practitioner, I think is so helpful. But you're right, that intuition, it just takes time. Like, people ask how I got to where I am as far as figuring out what to eat. And I'm like, I don't have a magic pill. It just took time, but I can literally walk into the kitchen and be like, I need protein. Or I need a salad. Like I can feel it in my body, but you can't teach that to people. It just takes time.
Yeah. And I felt that too, but what I have not been able to intuitively feel without data is my response on my glucose monitor. My CGM has just been wildly empowering, because I used to think, oh, I have low blood sugar. I have to eat every 3 hours. Like, I'm getting agitated. And when I looked at the data, I was like, whoa, that is not true. What I thought was an intuitive practice was a little bit off the mark. And so then we adjust, we dial in. So I'm actually curious if you played with that and if you found any discrepancy, because that's the one thing I'm like, I definitely did not have an inner knowing about that.
I've been really lucky for whatever reason. It was not that long ago. I remember doing my genetic, we went into deep dive in my epigenetics. So for those who start, this is like total deep biohacking speak
I love it.
And one would think considering that virtually all my genes come from Northern Europe, that this guy is going to thrive on a meat-based diet and all this sort of stuff. And I've done great on plants for 20 years. And I've cultivated a practice around what I eat and what I don't eat and what I feel and all this sort of stuff. But then there's a generalized program. Right now it's a unique time because I'm on a kind of like a contest diet as I'm approaching 50. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
50. I'm going to see how close I can get to contest conditioning at 50. Nice. But when we cross-correlate it for the mutations in my genetics or potential mutations, number one, my genetics expert, Katrine Volinsky, who does all of our work in-house in our company for our high-end clients, she's a really smart lady. My diet was in perfect unison for counteracting possum mutations, and I had almost the lowest amount of mutations she's ever seen. No, I had no device. I had none of that stuff was revealed. But this is just something I discovered since I was 15. Now that to collaborate with what you said, this was something I developed and made all of the mistakes possible in the 30 plus years getting to that point.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
Trial and error.
And so sometimes you find out through burnout or blowout or max out and all of the things in blue. And I'm an extreme person by nature. So, I like, well, let's take it to the red line and see what happens, and
only way to find out.
We'll bring the car in and see if it comes back together. What do you think makes, or what do you feel is the key elements that allows someone to successfully go from where they're at to, optimizing and their health in a way that leads them into their dream state that you might say, or their ideal, however you want to quote that? I'd be curious to see what you say, because I think we talk so much about data and information or these tests or things, but going back to this mindset piece, what is the mindset of a successful biohacker, do you think, or someone who might not be a biohacker and becomes one as they transform their health?
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of Masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on Masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at Masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at Masszymes.com.
I think being open-minded. Go ahead, Renee. I know you had a...
No, well, that's great. I was just going to say, I think even before maybe mindset, we always talk about starting with the basics. Some people are never going to get to the biohacking maybe that the three of us are doing. That's just not their interest, not their goal. So we always say, are you doing the basics? Are you getting out in the sunshine? Are you putting your feet on the grass at least once a day? Are you walking your 10,000 steps or whatever your goal is? Are you moving intelligently? Lauren talks about intelligent exercise a lot. Are you sleeping? Are you doing all the basics? If not, then maybe don't even worry about buying all these data, fun tech things and doing lab testing. I think mindset falls in there as well, but I think it's just different for everyone depending on where they're starting.
Yeah. I think I mean, we have to have some kind of stillness so we get that feedback from ourselves. So creating space to allow the answers to come. But I think most coaches would say this, like you have to take one step at a time. You have to meet the client where they are. And I just heard something where it's like this 4% sweet spot of discomfort. And if you push someone past that 4%, it can have this rebound effect, which actually is not advantageous to growth. So it's meeting them where they are at and pushing them. It's like that hormetic stressor. It's like just a little bit of stress so we get that adaptation in the right direction. And that percentage it's 4%, but that amount or what it is different for everyone. So it's this very delicate listening, reassessing. It's like that process never ends. I think you kind of mentioned this earlier, Wade, like we change, like what I eat today is maybe not what's going to serve me a year from now, 5 years from now. If we stop listening ever, I think that's when the problems arise. So just creating space for the answers to come.
James Clear's Atomic Habits is kind of along the alignment of that.
That right there.
Yes.
And there's different people that, like you said, have a different, what that 4% is different from person to person or variance. Mm-hmm. I know for Matt, we talk about this a lot. He's very much into that incremental side of things. And I'm probably a little bit more brutal.
You are the anomaly. I think we probably are in that category too.
Yeah, some people are ready for it.
Yeah, you know, when someone gives me the gears and just hammers me, I think maybe my ego structure needs a good beat down in order for me to generate enough humility to kind of go down that road. I don't know, but it's some people call me stubborn. I just say I'm focused on what I want, but you have to take that as.
You sound incredibly open-minded to just whatever's going to come.
Well, I do love that. How would you define open-minded, both as maybe as a way of life and also as a way of, integrating into a biohacking lifestyle?
I mean, I think as far as biohacking and open-mindedness, I think literally just being open-minded to the fact that one biohack could work for you and it could not work for someone else, and just be willing to try. I mean, obviously you don't want to spend, $1 million trying everything, but being willing to try.
I'm already there.
Well, that's our dad. Literally. Yeah. Every time I go to buy a piece of biohacking tech, I call my dad first and say, do you already have this? Yeah. Are you using it? Because if not, can I try it?
Yeah.
But just everyone is different. I mean, Lauren and I, we're sisters, and it's amazing what we have learned as far as differences. I mean, as far as diet, what biohacks work, what don't work. And then also just in life, I think we need to be more open-minded now more than ever. And I think we're going the wrong direction as a society. I literally had a friend the other day say, the very hot debate that's going on right now. I won't say what it is, but she said, Renee, I can't even talk to you about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a problem.
And I'm like, why can't we talk about it? Why can't we talk about it?
All this sort of stuff, right? I call it the jab. I think that's okay. We call it
the jab. Okay.
Yeah.
Why can't we talk about it? I'm not going to get angry at how you feel, what your beliefs are. I want to hear what science you have found, what you're reading. I'm going to show what science I have found. We can learn from each other. We can absolutely learn from each other just by being open-minded. It's a hard thing to teach, though.
We'll never get anywhere if we all agree.
Lauren, how do you see open-mindedness?
I think releasing expectations is a big one for me. Some people, you put a task in front of them, an actionable item, and they've already attached what they think the outcome is going to be. So, I mean, there are a zillion examples. I think it's just releasing all expectations and creating that space for stillness so that you can find your own outcome. Because I think if your mind tells you, I'm going to sit in front of this red light, I'm not going to feel anything, I'm going to be bored, it's exactly what's going to happen. If you get on the amp coil and you're like, hocus pocus, this PEMF sound vibration. I don't feel it.
Doesn't work.
You're never going to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Never going to feel it. That's again, like your thoughts are instructing your cells in your entire body. So I think it's magical to just, embrace the possibility and expect miracles. I don't think enough of us expect miracles.
Agreed. And what could be more miraculous than shooting through space at 1.5 million miles, spinning around the galaxy at 500,000 miles an hour, rotating at 24,000 miles? Like when you
crazy,
pretty far out. Like there's like this little chunk of dirt and water floating at one end of the
mind-blowing
boring
stuff.
little star system on some edge of some boring galaxy flying through space. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's pretty, like, the fact that there is life and we're experiencing this cognition, and then we got technology on top of it. And you go out and just look at a flower or watch a bee fly. And, these are pretty awesome things, and I think cultivating the childlike curiosity is and making things fun and exciting. I'm looking at an education system right now for kids because it's been something I've been on my mind for a long time. And I was very frustrated with education in that they took the fun out of learning. And I think that fun should be infused with, I don't think fun in education and learning should be separated. And one of the things I find that's really interesting about biohacking events, I've got another one coming up tomorrow. Well, this will be already done, but we got these, it's called Wake Up various cities. So Wake Up Orange County. I just took over Wake Up Los Angeles. It's going to be a biohacking event here in LA where we get biohackers together. And what's really interesting is the energy, excitement, enthusiasm that people are carrying. And it reminds me of that childlike fun. How do you inspire that? Because it's obviously you guys are both really switched on in this world and grew up in an environment. How do you inspire that with your clients and the people that you work with?
I just hope that by living and breathing it myself, I'm inspiring people. And my husband says to me all the time, he's like, how do you just keep learning? Yeah, I always have a book out. I always have a podcast going, a YouTube video. I'm so excited to keep learning more about health. And my husband's like, I don't know how you just keep doing it, but it's just like this inner passion. I just I have to do it. It's what makes me feel alive. But to help others find that, I don't know. I just hope that just being a role model for it. I think when people see those of us that we have good energy all day, we're happy, we're bright, hopefully that just instills something in them to want to follow suit. But I get that the average person doesn't want to pick up a nutrition book and sit down and read it cover to cover. But like Lauren said, if we were all the same, the world would be pretty boring. And one thing that we do as the Biohacker Babes is we try and weed through all the information. We take in all the information, we sift through it, and then we try to almost regurgitate the cliff notes for people. So even if they're not as passionate as we are, that's okay. Spend 40 minutes a week to just learn a little bit to optimize your health. And maybe that will encourage them to want to learn more over time.
Yeah. I think to tag on to that inspiration factor, I've noticed that as a health coach, and I'm doing all virtual now, I used to feel like to get on Zoom and do a session, I had to put on nice clothes and, look like a professional. And it was very dry and very scientific and educational. And I found that my energy was matched by my clients. So they would be very serious. And I noticed over time when I, released my clothing expectations and let my hair be whatever and kind of let myself be silly and made sure to laugh, that they would also respond in that way. And I think no matter what we're talking about, that information gets infused in a totally different way. So I know that could be really small scale, but it's then you can expect miracles. You're like, what's going to happen? Because you just infused or you put all these inputs in a joyous, positive, lighter way rather than, oh, nutrition, serious, it's hard, it's challenging. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I think the Patch Adams' approach to health is a great thing. And the data for those data-driven people on humor and fun and joy and happiness and laughing is extraordinary for immune system response and overall general health.
Yeah. What was the gentleman, Norm something, who cured his cancer with
Norman
laughter?
Cousins, I think it was.
Norman Cousins.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just with laughter.
Just turned on comedy every day and laughed his way to health.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Sometimes, I always say genius runs to simplicity. And I think that was an Einstein quote. And I think it was, I forget which one it was, is that perfection is when there's nothing left to take away. And the famous inventor of 1500s, Da Vinci. And so to refine one's process as a biohacking, when we have this host of choices, kind of leads me to the next questions. What are the do's and musts and don'ts of your individual routines? And maybe you can kind of share that with our listeners, as well as where the differences might be between both of you, even though that you're sisters and living in different worlds, you don't have the same programs.
I mean, I would say my top priority every day is sleep. I just know everything is better when I sleep well.
How many hours?
I'm a 9 hours in bed.
Did you do the chronotype thing?
Yep. I'm a bear.
I was going to guess. I was going to
guess, right? And Lauren is a dolphin. So that's one way we definitely are different.
How many hours? I forget how the dolphin, how much does the dolphin sleep?
I'm about 7:30. I'm actually not sure if that's exactly what they say for dolphin, but I'm definitely one eye open. I'm alert.
I'm a lion, so I get up early and go hunt.
I could have guessed that.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah. So I would say I always prioritize sleep. It helps me think better. I eat better. I can hit it harder in the gym. It's just like this cycle that just runs off of me getting a really good night's sleep. I'm also really big on meditation. And
particular style?
Yes. So I am a tech girl when it comes to meditation.
Okay.
I think everyone knows meditation is beneficial, right? That's not even like up for discussion. We all know it.
Yes.
But I used to think, I'm a bad meditator. I can't turn off my brain, right?
Like,
now we know that's not true.
And everything. It's like bad.
Yeah. I fall asleep, get in trouble. Yeah. So no, I really love the brain tap device. That is just one biohacker.
Patrick Porter's done a lot for the world. He's one of the big sponsors of the Wake Up series at Cities. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
I got a brain tap too. It's great.
I love it. I love it. I know it's maybe not for everyone, but if I do 30 minutes of that a day, it's a game changer for me. Lauren, you have one now too, the brain tap. Do you feel as good after when you do it?
Oh, I feel amazing. So I just went to my chiropractor right before this. I go to Anuka, and before he releases you from the office, you have to go into the meditation room, and you can do a guided meditation or you can do brain tap. I'm always brain tap. Always feel awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure that helps with the spinal alignment and everything staying, because you leave in a parasympathetic state.
Yeah. I mean, you could so easily, I live in New York City. You walk out and there's just noise, not audio noise. There's just energetic environmental noise, and you're really susceptible. You're more vulnerable after you've had that work done. So it's that grounding. It's can we harness this, make sure we have our little protective bubble to a certain extent before you expose yourself to outside inputs.
Yeah.
So we've got sleep, we've got meditation. What else we got?
For me, the infrared sauna.
Morning, evening, afternoon?
I'm like a 4:30 p.m. Kind of girl. I do it on my off days of really intense exercise. I do, I call it my off day or my active recovery day. So I'll do more walking, more slow, steady state cardio. And then I jump in the sauna and I just feel like Superwoman. I love the heat. That's why I moved to the desert.
Lauren, this is where we differ. I love the cold. Love all the cold. So whenever I can get into a cold plunge, but I do daily cold showers. I love it. Just is so invigorating to me. Other than that, I don't have a consistent. I'm trying to remember exactly what you asked, but I try not to be.
What's your do's, your musts, and your don'ts?
My don't is to not be rigid in my routine, my practice. So I carve space out in my morning. And then, I just try to check in. So if I always had the same 3 things on my to-do list, maybe that wouldn't be right for me in that day. I always have the space, but those 3 things could change. Sunlight in the morning, that's my to-do. That is my must. I have to get sunlight in my eyes in the morning. And then what else I stack with that kind of comes and goes. It might be breath work, meditation. I always move in the morning. I'm a huge mobility person. I'm a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for 15 years, but more than ever, I'm just like, I just want to move and not be in pain when I'm older. Mm-hmm. So big into the mobility. And actually breath work has been a really big thing in this last year for me. Renee and I grew up dancing. And so we were taught to hold in our stomachs and, just breathe. And we're just constantly in this fight or flight. And I think that has extended well beyond those years. So I'm trying to still reset that. I think the number of years that I spent there is, like I said earlier, it's going to take just as many years of really intentional breath work. So I catch myself like not breathing, or it's really shallow. So I've been trying to build more space into my day to be really intentional with that.
Yeah. I have to second the morning sunshine. If anyone is not getting morning sunshine, please start doing it tomorrow. It's the most amazing way to start your day. And I'll tell a funny story. Lauren already knows this. So my backyard here in Vegas, so it's sunny, 350 days a year. I'm really grateful for that. There's a little sliver of sun in my backyard where I can actually go outside naked.
That's awesome.
So I get full sun exposure in the morning.
Beautiful.
I'm so jealous. I don't think there's anywhere in New York that I would not be spotted, but I guess
yeah.
Yeah, I get in trouble when I walk around naked on my roof here in Venice. Not a pretty sight, so.
You got to find a little spot.
I'm not that kind of guy. I'm kind of like, just like, hey, let it all out, right? Whatever. It's interesting though that you said that, because that's a very strong yogic practice about exposing one's to sunlight and its impact. And of course, his name just escapes me for a second. The neurosurgeon. It's all about the light. Oh. Why is his name skipping me? We'll refer back to him again. He's kind of really into the whole light mitochondrial conversation and the importance of light and getting out into that. Any other things? Any other items that you do besides running naked into the desert?
Yeah. I think, like you said, trying to have more fun for a long time. I'm a very creative person by nature. And for a very long time, I was trying to do all the right things and I didn't make space for fun and play. And I think it's funny. All the biohackers are like, you got to wake up, stay off your tech, check in with yourself before you check in with the world. And I try to do that as well. And I'm always telling my boyfriend, like, get off your phone. Like he's barely awake and he's on Twitter and Instagram.
Right.
But he is watching comedy reels and he is laughing his butt off for 30 minutes. And so you're like weighing the consequences. I'm like, you're on tech, but you are starting your day in such a joyous way. And so I'm kind of starting to lean into that. I'm like, maybe not first thing in the morning, but the power of laughter and comedy. It's like, you should not ever go a day without.
Not stressful for him. I think most people, they check their phone and they're hit with everyone else's to-do lists for them.
Very true.
And that is a horrific way to start the day. But maybe he's onto something.
I think he might be.
It's interesting because I just started that. I just took a completely tech-free trip. No phones, emails, computers, nothing. A couple of weeks.
Dopamine fast.
Terrified. A number of people at my company who couldn't reach me, which was awesome. And it was totally transformative in a lot of ways because I felt that suck, running a large company and all that sort of stuff. And there's always a million things to be done. And you get that kind of you're on the treadmill kind of feeling. And I think a lot of people can relate.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much input and not enough output, which is the creative aspect. And so coming back to that, I recently reintegrated, and I get up and I don't use my phones, and I'm energized, do my energization, do my meditation outside in my sun. I get on my PMF device and I get my NanoV pumping oxygen, and I'm reading my spiritual texts.
Amazing.
And then I go downstairs to my work studio, take my nootropics. Have you guys tried over nootropics yet?
I just started on Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
Today I took, I stacked Upbeat with Brain Flow.
Oh, that's a good one.
I like that one. I did that same stack yesterday. So I was like, I'm going to do it again.
I did Power Solution with Apex with way too much show pour yesterday. So by the end of the day, it was a little too aggressive, but.
Okay. I haven't tried Power Solution yet. I'm a little nervous. I got to save that for its own.
Everybody has their different ones, but then after I take my nootropics, and you got to have a vice. So I'm into show pu'er teas, which are the earthy teas, and you do multiple washes. So I boil my tea and I get my temperature, my little tea set, and I'm, like the Japanese guy is, it's fun.
Yes.
And I started outputting at 7 a.m. So by 7 a.m., I spend the next hour outputting whatever I need to write. It could be working on my next book. It could be addressing the things that were running around in my head before I went to bed, or dealing with a group of tasks that I've put off. And I've switched out of the tech, my phone, to this. When I write things down and check them off, I get things done. When it goes into this, for whatever reason, maybe because I'm not from the digital, it's lost. I'm gone. I put it in. I never remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just done.
Pen and paper.
And I can honestly say that it's transformative, just kind of doing those little things. And working out's always been easy for me. Supplementation's been easy for me. Some biohacks are easy for me. Like, you kind of have your go-tos that you like. I got some new devices here at the Biohome. If you guys come out to the West Coast, you got to come visit.
What do you have?
I'm going to be in LA next week.
Are you?
For 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Come visit. I just got this Hocat. Do you guys know that one?
No.
I've heard about it, but no, I haven't tried it.
So we're just getting it hooked up now. I got all the gear here. We're putting it together. It's got carbonic acid and ozone and PMF. It's 10 biohacks in one. And it's like a little capsule you get in, and you just
rocket ship.
It switches between the different ones, and you've got the PMF going. So it's like 10 in one, right? And then I can put on a V light on my head, shoot some lasers in my brain, or do a
Who needs to go to space? You got it right there.
I'm just going to launch in my little capsule downstairs, and it's fun.
That's amazing.
These things are fun. So it's kind of like, I'm all about stacking as many things as possible.
Yes. I have a good stack I've been doing. I do.
Tell us.
I have the IMRS PEMF mat that uses heart rate variability to incorporate the PEMF. I do that. I have my weighted blanket, my brain tap, and then my red light. There's 4. I got 4.
That's a capsule.
Not as good as the 10 in one.
The red light's on your face, or is it on your whole body? Like, is it the juice?
When I stack it, it's just on one side. So it's not ideal. I still do front later, but
right.
It's something. Yeah.
I love that.
Lauren,
stacking is where it's at.
You got a stack that you do?
I don't have a tech stack, because my big toys I have the newbie stim, and I have amp coil, which cannot be done at the same time.
Not recommended. Yeah.
Not recommended. So when it comes to tech, I'm like one at a time, but my free, ancestral hacks, like the sunshine, the mobility, I'll stack as many of those as possible in one. But tech, I have to find the ones that are compatible and friendly to one another.
Especially in a tiny apartment.
Yeah. I live in New York.
Right.
Priorities.
You live in New York not to be in a house. You live in New York to be in New York.
Yeah. Why?
Trying to get her out to the West Coast. I'm working on it.
I've got a number of friends that just came out of New York recently in the biohacking community, because they just got squirrely with the lockdowns. And
squirrely is a good word. I'm getting there. So I'm a Broadway performer, and I'm not sure that I will be allowed to go back because of what's happening. So
oh yes, jab mandatories and things like that.
Yeah, I'm getting squirrely too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird world that we are living in, and I think, you know, the biohacking community. We talked a little bit about this off air with all the things that you can't say on air. Yes, there are insider conversations, folks, that aren't being
you got to pay extra for that
by the tyrannical digital gods. Get out and meet people. Why we're doing these events. You know, we got Dave Asprey's coming up. Are you guys going down to that down in Miami? You going?
I'll be there.
Biohacking.
Are you going?
I think I'll be there.
We're totally going. We're so excited. We're so out of our minds excited to actually meet. We did a biohacking event here, like the Wake Up Orange County, and I'm going on Friday again. I mean, the first one, it felt like there was this strange social euphoria that came out of being in a room with 100 people. Actually, I actually earlier last year in the pandemic, I went to Nevada to take my it's kind of almost like militia training. It was weapons training at a facility out in Pahrump, which is it's like a military training facility out in the middle of the desert, about an hour away from Las Vegas.
I've heard of that.
Oh, it's so cool. You go out and you feel like you're in some kind of movie. It's like this desert, and and you go out there.
Yeah, I've seen videos.
You come through this entry point, and then there's a big parking lot, and there's all these cars, and everybody's packing. It's like everybody's got guns on them and everything. And it was the nicest, happiest, sweetest group of people you'd ever imagine. Like there was a little granny that was working with me. She was in her 70s, learning to.
Granny was packing. Yes.
She was packing, and she was terrified. She's like, I got my grandson. And what was really fascinating is there's this projection in the world, like it's, get out of her town kind of mentality. But it was real people who wanted to make, were concerned about the way things are going and want to defend themselves and learn both the legal ramifications of weapons training, the safety weapons, and it's a really great course. But with this biohacking event, this was the same thing. We went to this, and there's this euphoria, this social euphoria that emerges when you're around people, and you realize as a species, humanity has been successful because of its communication ability. Like our ability, we're weaker than all the animals. We don't have claws. We don't have fangs. We don't have big muscles. We can't run that fast. We're pretty bad when it comes from the physicality, but our communication skills, our ability, and to work in groups in unison, and our whole culture has been that. And that has been stripped away from us in this pandemic. And as beautiful as it is to connect through digital technology, there is a biochemical, physiological, proximal experience of being in the presence of other people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
How do you, moving forward, I want to be mindful of our time, we're moving up to there. As we move forward I don't call it the new normal, I call it the new stupid. That's what it is.
Very appropriate.
Stupid. And how do you guys see this impacting biohacking? How do you see it impacting your clients? Have you thought about how you're going to navigate this, how they're going to move forward as restrictions continue to go? Do you think there's a breaking point? Do you think that we take back our autonomy, or do we continue marching down to this kind of dystopian, tyrannical regime that seems to be moving at a frightening pace in our world? And where do biohackers fit in that? So that's a lot of questions, but I really want to get into this because I think you guys are doing such a great service in the world. You're sharing your information, you're taking your knowledge and your passion, and you're disseminating it in such a dynamic, fun way and encouraging people. How does that message continue forward, and how do you feel maybe your responsibilities or your ideas around that?
I've always thought that biohacking was a little bit isolating. It's like if you're biohacking, you're going into your room, your closet, away from your people, because we're with tech experimenting, and all biohackers understand the importance of community and tribe and that biochemical exchange like you were talking about. But I think the urgency is really showing up where it's like, we can't do this alone. So I find we're like becoming a little more magnetic, where we're like all kind of clumping together. And I think that energy is going to move in the right direction. We're seeing it, we're being isolated from other people that are not like-minded. And, that can be a little sad, but I think the big picture is that we're going to move. There's going to be a shift, a very uncomfortable shift. But I think it's become very apparent that we need each other. And I think we're going to come together, some kind of explosion, who knows? But I do think, the isolation is now going to come back into this integration phase where we kind of collaborate, and maybe we're less competitive, maybe we're less isolated. I just see it going in a good direction.
Yeah, I hope it's going in a good direction. I really hope. And I think the more people like us that are spreading that message will hopefully help. And I'm so excited that like the Biohacking conference is happening in September, and Biohacking Congress in October, A4M in December, like all these events are coming back. And I am so excited. I'm counting down the days. So anyone that's listening that's going to go to these events, connect with the three of us. I will be there hugging everyone because I'm not afraid of anything.
Heart to heart.
Yes. That you got to get that 30-second hug in to get that oxytocin release that we all need so much. But I think even people not in the health space are really starting to feel the ramifications of being isolated. And they're finally coming out of their homes and being like, well, why was I so afraid for the last year? What have I been so afraid of this thing that has a 0.1% chance of doing some harm? So I think there is more awareness, and the more that we can spread that message and connect with others, I have a good feeling. Maybe 2021 will be a little rough, like Lauren said, some big changes, but we're going to get through it and be stronger on the other side.
And hopefully lead by example, because word is not so powerful right now. Word, I think, is really polarizing.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are leading the charge. You've done a great job of sharing some insights into your unique journeys as the biohacking babes, experts and entrepreneurs, as well as advocates for a healthier and happier lifestyle, whether that you're digitally driven or intuitively driven. And I think that's really great that you've kind of combined that, and you're doing some wonderful things in the world. Can let us know where people can reach you, find out about your podcast, your offerings, your services, and maybe leave us with a few gems of wisdom from your wealth of experience.
Sure. So thebiohackerbabes.com is our website. Podcast is Biohacker Babes. We both do individual health coaching. We also do co-coaching. So if you want to work with both of us and kind of get a piece of both of our minds, you can find that through our website. And on Instagram. We're mostly on Instagram, not Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Biohacker_babes on Instagram. Yeah. To leave everyone with maybe one final piece of advice, I think something, I always like something that people can start doing right away. When it comes to the data, don't get overwhelmed by it. I say, if you're new to this, pick one thing to track. Fasting glucose. Maybe it's a blood test number. Vitamin D. Maybe it's an Oura ring with sleep, right? Just pick one piece of data and start implementing changes. Every week you add one new habit, right? Maybe every Sunday it's one new habit, and just keep working towards that goal and checking on that one piece of data, and see how you feel. I think just one thing, like one data piece, is going to impact everything in life. It's amazing how it spirals into other pieces of your life.
It's well said, Lauren.
Just to tag on to that, I think with that one new habit or actionable item, just allow space and time for your body to give you feedback. Allow the thoughts, allow the listening to communicate.
Sounds like solid advice to me. So there you have it, folks. Right from the Biohacker Babes mouths. You can find their information on the biohackerbabes.com, Instagram at biohacker_babes. Check out their info, check out their sites, get on it, and come out to an event and give themselves a full-on 30-second oxytocin fearless hug, because they're hacked and healthy and ready to share their information, their love, and their kindness. And thank you so much for joining us today on the Awesome Health Podcast. For those of you who like this episode, do a like, do a share, throw it in the garbage if you didn't. Hate us, whatever it matters. You feel good. It's all good to me. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you on the very next episode. Take care.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.